Good day, learners. Today we'll be talking about business analysts. What is it? What is business analyst? What is it that they actually do? What comes to mind when we think of business analyst? As far as the work that they are currently doing, which is to bridge the gap between the stakeholders as well as the IT. But we need to go deeper than that, where we actually need to understand what are business analysts actually doing on a day-to-day basis. Well, according to the International Institute of Business Analysts, a BA, or what we normally call business analysts, they work as a liaison among stakeholders, mainly to gather, analyze, communicate, and validate requirements that are needed to make some changes to business processes, to the company policies, as well as to the existing information systems, even proposed new systems that needs to be implemented. They also understand the business problems and identify opportunities that are there so that they can also recommend some solution that will actually enable the organization to achieve their own business objectives or business goals. So mainly what BA will actually do will be looking into some of the problems that the company actually experiences and find solutions for those particular problems so that they are able to meet the objectives of the organization. So you are more of a business analyst, as the term says, business analysts. Remember, all that you are actually do is to influence the business processes as well as the policies within the organization in order to improve their information systems. Therefore, now that we know what business analysts, you will need to identify some of the business needs and determine the solutions. By business needs, we say, what are the actual requirements that the business actually need to do? And for you to actually identify those business analysts, those business needs, in some instances, you'll actually need to identify the problems that are actually there, that the business actually has. Then you start determining those particular solutions. Let's say, for instance, the solution that you actually need to do is to develop a system that is needed for the organization, be it the queuing. We want to address the problem of the queuing system, or we want to address any particular challenge that makes it difficult to actually allow the business to operate optimally or effectively, or any bottlenecks that actually needs to be solved. That's where then you come in as a BA to actually understand those needs and make sure that you put them in a way that it's more understandable or is understood by stakeholders, because of you are there to address their actual needs. In most of the time, what you will be doing as a BA, you will be actually bridging the gap between business and IT. You must understand that there is a difference between the two, the business aspect as well as the IT. Mostly, IT provides certain solutions in terms of how organization can be more efficient and effective. We use IT or information technology to enhance or to enable the organization effectiveness. So without IT, to a certain extent, most companies or businesses will actually have very stringent ways of doing businesses. Their processes probably will be hampered, will not be effective or efficient as we would like them to be, because we are lacking that IT component. So you ought to understand those business processes as well as procedure, meaning how this particular business work. And you ought to identify the areas that will need to be improved. That is your role as the BA, and as well as work with the business stakeholders to identify any solutions that actually would be needed for the organization. So that is the role of the business analyst. But you must also remember there's also a systems analyst that you will be working hand to hand with, as well as we also have project managers. But all these three, they will have different roles in terms of how this particular organization will actually be operating. The business analyst, we have already said that they focus more on understanding the business processes as well as those particular procedures. Systems analysts actually do different work as compared to the business analysts. Same applies with project managers. But you ought to understand that there is a difference between the system analyst and the business analyst. What is it that they actually do? For instance, system analysts mostly focus on the technical implementation of a IT software. Although that they have to understand the business requirements, which are mostly documented by the business analyst, but when it comes to systems analysts, they more of technical people, if you may say. They're focusing on that technical aspect where they actually need to design and document the functionality of any particular system. So what they will actually do, or some of the problems that they would be solving, they have to research about the systems and focus into the coding review and data analysis and as well as modeling. So their key functionality is more of focusing on the technical aspect. They are not defining business needs. They are not looking at what the systems analysts actually do. I mean, the business analysts actually do. So you can see that difference between these two particular individuals. One focusing on how we can improve these particular businesses or these particular systems, and the other one comes in to say, actually, here is the solution. Here is a technical solution that probably needs to be developed, needs to be implemented. And when it comes to project managers, well, this one is a straightforward. They are more responsible for successful planning and executing of a project, and their role is to manage people, the money, and ensures that the teams they work effectively in order to accomplish their project objectives. So most of their roles will include planning and defining the scope, what activities that are going to be there, the resources that are going to be required, developing the schedule, time and cost, and so forth. Now that we know what are business analysts, project managers, as well as systems analysts, there are also competences that are actually needed for these particular individuals in order for them to operate. They need to have a certain competences. But let's focus on the business analyst competences. Well, here we define what e-competency means. We're saying it is a demonstrated ability to proficiently apply the relevant and adequate combination of knowledge. So knowledge becomes a key factor. How knowledgeable that you are as far as the business analyst, in order for you to actually provide all the necessary information that is actually needed as far as doing your own particular goals. There's also an element of skills and attitude. So what skills that you actually need to have in order for you to be able to provide an effective working and working objectives and all of that. So when we speak about skills, it's all about having an ability to apply your actual knowledge that you actually have for as a business analyst. So these two comes together and actually provide the means to become a business analyst. You ought to be knowledgeable. You ought to have the skills as well as the attitude, the right attitude which is very much important, because of you may have the knowledge and the skills, but if ever then you don't necessarily have the actual right attitude, the correct mindset to actually do what needs to be done. Remember, the attitude gives you that zeal to actually do something. Without having that particular attitude, then it becomes a problem. So you ought to have the right attitude as well. So some of the competences that probably you will need, for instance, you need to have the technical competences, which is the ability to use the relevant information system and technology appropriately, as well as you need to have a business acumen, knowledge of organization, business processes, and knowledge management as well, leadership and supervisory competences. Remember, in most of the time you will be leading projects, so you need to have that supervisory kind of competency. Of course, the social and emotional competency and intrapersonal skills is also very much important for you to be able to be a good a BA